We'll do rich versus poor, just because.
As a real estate guy, I can make millions of dollars and use the exact same tax loopholes that a Donald Trump would use and pay effectively no tax. And does that make me a bad guy, or did I just study the tax code?
It makes you a bad guy, yeah.
Middle ground.
Step forward if you agree. Being poor is a choice.
Yeah, no. There's one from each side. I don't get this. Like, why would somebody...
I do not want to be disingenuous to ignore systemic issues that we all experience, but I feel like it's 2021 and there's a lot of free resources. I mean, Facebook has a lot of free courses. I think that poor is also a mindset.
I agree. Originally, when I came out here, I started straight at the homeless shelter. I had to flee.
Get on some cheap zinc and OJ. Get them rookie numbers up.
Most people in general don't choose to be poor, but since I've been here, specifically in LA, a lot of people outside, they don't want to come into the shelter because they rather be in the tents.
I mean, I grew up poor, so...
But that's not a difference between being poor being a choice. It's whether you want to be poor and have more freedom by living in a tent, or living in a shelter and having less freedom than you did, but being more secure. Like there's not really a difference between, you're still poor.
I have been on both sides of the coin, and I can reflect and look back on some of the lifestyle choices that I was making, some of the people that I was hanging around. So I don't think that people can initially control if they're...
I love it how people, like, you know, once they get to that point of being rich, they're like, you know, oh, it was, they make up these excuses like it was their friends or their poor choices. There's no systemic issues there or anything like that. It's ridiculous.
Born into poverty,
Right.
but I think that there is a certain level of control that comes along with being able to...
How? What's the level of control? What's I mean, either you're born into a situation where you have the tools and skills given to you that you can make something happen, or you have to learn that later, which already sets you off at a disadvantage. I had nobody to teach me things in growing up about financial situations, so when I did get out on my own, I had to learn all of that stuff myself really quickly. You can't expect a child to focus their energies on that when they're growing up if they don't have any introduction as to how important those things are.
Have that determination and that resilience. Yeah.
Can I have the disagreeer step forward?
We need to realize that these people are on the street not because of their own choosing, but because of the system that we live in perpetuates these things.
If I could speak to that, I come from a family that once relied on welfare and food stamps, and I've been blessed enough to make millions of dollars in real estate. But had I bought real estate from 2005 to 2008, I'd probably be bankrupt today. I just bought at the right time.
People wish to be rich, they don't want to be rich. The difference is, do you take action? That being said, I agree with a lot of you.
So you're saying that everybody's poor because they didn't take action. Okay, so I think people take action every day, but people kind of get stuck in this monotony. Like, I have to pay my bills, so I have to go to this job and work 60 hours a week. So there's, no way to kind of break out that. How do you go into how do you go and find better employment if you're working for minimum wage and trying to get the money you need to pay your bills? It doesn't really leave time for much else. It's hard for me to even do this because I'm not making any money off of it yet. Hopefully I do eventually, but right now I'm not making any money off of it. But so this is a luxury that I use my spare time for, in order to, I guess, do something I'm passionate about in the hopes that maybe eventually it will pay off for me, financially as well. But as of right now, like it's just a passion, and it's how I choose to spend my time. It's a shot in the dark, but that's what America is about, right? Is dreaming and trying to make your hopes and your dreams come true.
The points you're making about people not really having the resources or the opportunity to have any kind of action plan.
Some people don't even want to be rich. Like, I don't want to be rich. Like, but I also don't want to be poor. I'm happy in the middle. And I would want to live in a society where they could perpetuate people to live themselves
It's all right,
out of
Derp.
poverty through programs. And
I
just
kind
be
of
in
get
the
what you're
middle.
saying.
Billionaires should not exist.
No, they should not. It's not necessarily their fault that they exist, but it's the fault of the system, which allows them to exist when other people are living in abject poverty.
I don't see how anyone could ever spend $1 billion. It's not a necessity to have that much money, and I feel like there is a certain cap in which, like, you can completely survive and thrive with this amount of money, and then if you surpass that, you're just hoarding.
And then we've seen what
I would feel guilty being a billionaire, I believe. I really do. I think that if I had that much money, I would feel really shitty. I would feel like that I wasn't doing enough, because I've been in situations where I would take that money, maybe put it into investing, and then everything that was made off that investment, I would continually go into helping the poor. There's some good programs in California and in Texas and places like that where they're trying to build transitional homes for the homeless and things like that. Just buying up properties and allowing homeless people to live in them. That would be great too. I think that's something that more people should do.
people with billions of dollars.
Wait, hold on. Someone near or endeared to me is the only one generation away from the poverty cycle. There was a lot of back and forth sharing the good habits she had to learn regarding budgeting. While I only knew how to save money, but not necessarily budget, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it does. Budgeting is really hard for me too, because I don't know. I get in these mindsets, and this is some real shit here for you guys, and some real honesty. I get in these positions where I struggle for so long, and I try to pinch pennies for so long, and then I see other people being able to enjoy their lives and do things that they want to do. Go out and have a good time or whatnot. Spend things on their kid, and that's where most of my money goes to be honest, is I love doing things for my child. I love him being able to feel good and have good clothes and stuff like that. So that's where most of my extra money goes. But, sometimes I just feel like, why them and not me? And I get in this almost depressed state of mind, an almost frantic state of mind, where I'm like, fuck this. I'm gonna go out and spend money and bring myself some happiness. And I know part of that is the fact that our society puts such a value on material possessions and material things, that I think that's going to bring me happiness. But then once that money's spent and I'm having a hard time making my rent or paying the bills in the next week, that's when the depression sets in even further, and it just drags me down. So I think that happens to a lot of people, is the frustrations there. And it's really hard to do that and to put your nose to the grindstone constantly. And I've done it. Like there's been years where I've never bought anything for myself and had to tell my kid that I couldn't afford things and stuff like that, especially over COVID. And that was really hard to do. But, that's just the thick of the situation, is that I think that everybody should have the opportunity to enjoy those things, those material possessions. It shouldn't be a have and have not situation.
Are doing with their money. They're going to space for fun.
Right.
Clearly, if we tax those people properly, they get their wealth and distribute it to people who need it, that'd be a much better use than going to space for fun.
Personally, I don't think there's issues with billionaires existing. The issue for me is that they need to be held accountable the
Yeah,
same
they don't
way
distribute
poor
it.
people do. And I'm talking about the justice system.
When you look at a lot of billionaires who have gotten that way because of the just incredible amount of value they've given to society, I won't even talk.
That's not the case, though, most of the time. If you look at all of the billionaires, that people think of Elon Musk, for instance, as self-made, his parents were rich. He was given opportunities to where he could start PayPal and things like that, and be able to have the leg up. I mean, he didn't come from abject poverty. You see that very, very, very little, where people make something of themselves from absolutely nothing in this country. At least not in recent times. I mean, even people like Donald Trump downplay the amount of help they got from their parents and stuff like that. And it's kind of sickening that they feel that they have to make excuses like, oh, we were poor. No, you had $1 million in the bank. How were you poor? It's really a situation where there's this myth that if you come from nothing, that you can make it to the top just through hard work. It's mostly luck. The only people that can make it to the top from that are people who get like discovered music wise, if you have some talents like that, which is very, 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 very hard to do. Maybe you're good at sports or something, and but that's like 1 in a million. It's the chances of that happening to your average person are next to nothing. So it's definitely a difficult road to go from being and the dirt poor, living on welfare all through your childhood, and then coming up into society and finding a way out of that and continuing on out of that. The 80s screwed us on. Yeah, that's true. Reaganomics, man.
Talk about a huge, crazy billionaire. I'll talk about Jay-Z, who's a billionaire. He made amazing music. That's how he became a billionaire. And so I don't think it's the government.
Right place, right time. A lot of people make amazing music. I know extremely talented people here locally in my own state, in own city, that are unbelievably talented, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck and trying to put everything into their music, their dream, and a lot of them probably won't make it, and that's really sad. If you come from nothing, it takes way more work, involving yourself with circles of people that you have what you want. Helps, but it's not always easy to get into those circles. Yeah, and that's true. And some of those people in those circles, like I found that some people in circles where they're about making money and they're getting to the point where they're well off, end up stepping on the backs of other people to do so. And that's something I'm not morally prepared to do. So I will never step on somebody else to get ahead. And a lot of situations, like a lot of people who climb the financial ladder like that, end up doing that. And that kind of scares me more than anything. I don't ever want to be at that point. Let's see here.
Government's job to interject and say, okay, you have too much, we need to give it away. I mean, it would also never happen in any other arena. No one's going to go, hey, Simone Biles, you have too many gold medals. We're going to take them from you, and we're going to give them to the other people who weren't as talented as you.
I completely agree.
I completely disagree. I feel like that is the government's job. And Jay-Z, like you said, Jay-Z made his money from music. That's his labor. He's a musician. He's selling his talent. But then when he invested in the alcohol, then he's using other people who are harvesting the wheat, the agave. They're breaking their back. They're using their labor.
So do you think that he shouldn't invest in those people? Should they just like say, the hell with your dreams, I'm not going to invest in you?
What about the job?
What do you mean?
They're having jobs.
Yeah, but how much are they getting paid for the jobs? Or those
Yeah.
jobs in the third world where
They're not getting the reaping the rewards that their labor is worth. Less and less people in this country reap the rewards of their labor. Reap the rewards of the labor that they should get. They're given pennies on a dollar. Minimum wage hasn't raised in this country for like a decade. There's fights constantly against taxing the rich and taxing capital gains, taxing things like that. And there's all kinds of loopholes and things like that for rich people, and all kinds of hurdles for poor people. Cost of living goes up constantly while wages stay the same, and it's getting harder and harder for people to make ends meet, let alone do things like buy a house. Like, there's not a lot of Gen Zers and millennials out there that are able to do that because of the financial situations that they're put into and grow into. Let's see here. Teaching college for the past 3 years definitely opened my eyes to the problems they're talking about in this video and made me more cognizant of the hurdles my friends have that I wasn't aware of before. Yeah, I mean, it's always, like I said, like I was saying before in the previous segment, you know, putting yourself in other people's shoes is very, very important, and thinking critically about the situations that and the financial institutions that we have in place.
Made pennies,
Yeah,
and then
versus
Jay-Z
no
makes
job.
millions off their labor.
How many people? How much do you pay your employees?
You think harvesting
than
isn't
enough?
going to exist and Jay-Z doesn't invest?
If I may interject, I pay my employees like incredibly well, and I let them choose their own hours.
Okay, that's you, bud. Like, a lot of people don't. A lot of people can't, because it's so hard to start a business in this country, which we'll probably find out here in a little bit, talking to Leon when he comes on.
Someone who works for me is a single mother. I pay her $50 an hour. And I think that people that are providing jobs and opportunities, you can hate on them all you want, but at the end of the day, like, nobody would work that job if it wasn't in some way, shape, or form worth it.
People who make $1 billion get a fraction of the value they create. Everybody here who has a business understands.
That's bullshit. They're living high on the hog. There's if you're worth $1 billion, you don't have to worry about anything financially. Like, your money makes itself, and that's shown. Like, you can see that. Like, if you have that much money, like, there's financial ruin is next to impossible for you, especially, you know, if you are smart enough to get people to invest money for you and things like that. There's no way like that's the case. A fraction of what billionaires have to live on is multiple hundreds of times more than your average working class person has to live on.
That. Even Jay-Z only gets 15 cents a record he sells. Okay?
Yes. That's because he got exploited by the record label who's using his label to make money. It's the same
You
thing
keep using this word
when he
exploiting
invests.
like you understand the record business, of which I am in, okay? Record labels back hundreds of artists. Do you
He's wearing an Iowa Hawkeyes hat. What kind of record label?
know how many go busto? Okay? They're taking risk in an artist by the...
This guy annoys the piss out of me. Like, first of all, he said busto. He seems one of those people that I talked about that lacks empathy.
tapes, paying the engineers, marketing, etc. They're exploiting them. They're taking on a bet. And they can't just give everybody 50-50. They'll go bankrupt. You don't understand the record business, and you're just yelling out these words exploiting like you know what you're talking about, but you don't.
That's why
they're not exploiting.
That's why there's one Jay-Z and not millions.
Exactly.
I actually want to ask a question of how you define exploited and why you're saying that.
I'm using exploited in the Marxian term, where your labor creates value and then your employer takes that value and distributes it unevenly to themselves and then leaves the rest for the workers. That's exploitation. My name is
Yeah.
David. I work
Exactly. That's the fucking crux of it right there. Is exploitation is when you don't get the value for your work. You know, and value by value I mean, like, even if you're a janitor, like, you should get enough money to make a living wage for that job. You know, and eventually there won't be janitor jobs, there won't be driving jobs, there won't be menial labor jobs. So we're going to have to figure something out.
For Disney in the entertainment character department, and I make around $33,000 a year.
How's your experience been working at Disneyland?
My experience working at Disneyland is very mixed. The workers themselves, like my coworkers, are amazing.
He's about to get fired from Disney.
People. Unfortunately, the company is not so great. They don't pay us that much. they have enough money to pay us more. I think they should just pay us more. But I don't think they're going to do that. That's why I'm advocating for a union to bargain in our favor.
My name is Jenny.
I know a few business owners in my circles who in retail who won't pay well and end up and were shocked when their employees went to someone else who will give them $2 an hour bump. $2 an hour makes a difference. Yeah, absolutely. Like you see a lot of even locally here and around the country, you see all of these low-paying jobs such as Burger Kings and Walmarts and things like that. They're losing employees left and right. They're having a hard time. You see help wanted signs in just about every window of these jobs because they're not paying their employees enough to keep them at that job. The pandemic has changed the mindset of workers and kind of showed them, not only the dangers of interacting with the world and going out into society and working these jobs, but also the fact that they're worth more, that they deserve more. The government funding that they've been given, for instance, like PPP loans and the stimulus checks and things like that, gave them a little bit of freedom to breathe and come out from underneath the thumb a little bit and realize what they're worth. And that's caused a trend in this country that's made people more and more likely to take, or less and less likely rather, to take menial labor jobs for $8 an hour, $9 an hour. Most places, or a lot of places I know are catching on, and they're starting to pay people at least a little bit more. $14 an hour, but not everybody. You don't see that happening a lot with fast food restaurants and things like that.
And I run a software design agency, and this year I'm going to be taking home about $400,000. When I started my business, that was like all consuming for me. Everything I did in my life was for business. And so I think my partner felt a lot of neglect. And so a lot of our arguments, a lot of the times that we had issues were because of my absence.
Well, see, that's another problem is when you throw everything you have into making ends meet and making a success of yourself, you can lose other things in your life. You can lose connections and things with people. You can lose connections with yourself and your creativity and being able to have time for self-care, things like that. When you have to push so hard to make anything happen, you push like you're trying to make a mile and you make an inch, it makes things really hard.
Economy is rigged.
Transportation can also limit job availability too in that situation. Yeah, that's very true. And I have a friend who chased money for years and he got it, but the cost of a marriage. Yeah, exactly. Things like that happen all the time. You see that especially, with people who climb the corporate ladder and their mentalities even start to change. They become more cutthroat in their lives and therefore become less appealing and less empathetic in their personal lives as well.
If you're born in a rich family, you have more opportunities. And as someone who is poor, living paycheck to paycheck, you're stuck having to apply to jobs and settle for things that you don't like instead of being able to follow your passions.
I agree and disagree. I agree that it's rigged to incentivize certain areas and behaviors, like we have millions and millions of farm subsidies, so it supports agribusiness. It may support one area like real estate or capital investment over labor, but I don't think it's generally rigged to basically keep the rich guy rich and the poor guy poor.
How do you not see that? That's exactly what you were just talking about. It's like, there's situation from the working class to investors. Like that's the owner class versus the working class. That's exactly what he's contradicting himself in the same sentence.
That part I'll disagree. But there are certain policies like the reinvestment in productive people's hands for building real estate. I would say that's a good thing, right?
When you say
I don't
productive people, do you just mean people with money?
No, I mean people that actually take that money, organize people, put it to work, and create value. That's what I mean by productive people.
But who creates the value? It's the workers who create the value.
Yes.
Listen, there's people who take risk and they risk their money. That's creating value.
Where does that money come from? Why don't, if you don't have money to risk, then you're never going to be able to be in that situation in order to take any risks. And so therefore you're stuck in your situation. That's kind of the crux of the whole thing right there.
You discount is the person willing to risk their savings, okay, and provide capital for that venture and to be paid less. So if it goes busto, the worker still gets paid, the investor doesn't. If it goes well, the worker gets paid and the investor makes money. You discount the role of capital and savings in any type of venture. Like my mom didn't want to be rich. She wanted to be a school teacher and work and do that and live in the middle ground, and that's fine. But there are people like me who want to take a lot of risk and get a lot of reward. And we put that capital to work. And you should respect that. Hi, my name is Bill Perkins. I run a hedge fund. I do investments and other things. I manage my own money. How much I make annually? Sometimes I lose money, but I'd say on average.
Fucking hedge funds. This guy's one of the evil empire guys, posing as a broham, saying words like busto.
Over 10 million a year. I took care of my dad in the last years of his life. He died broke. I did not inherit my money. I made it myself. I really don't care about the money. Money is a tool for me to have the experiences that I want to have out of life.
Right, and that means that only you get to do that, as opposed to somebody who doesn't have the same opportunities. All right, and another thing is this guy's a little bit older, so the economy probably wasn't as shot when he started to make his money as it is now.
Many experiences that I want to have.
You have to have a certain level of awareness and knowledge to know the rules of the game. And I think that there are barriers put in place to kind of prevent people from knowing the rules, but I think that it's out there and you can have access to it, and it's, I think that
I
knowing the
agree
rules
with
is
you.
different.
I know the rules, and I think they're disgusting. That's why I want
Yeah.
to
You play the game then. I mean, you can.
I think
Exactly. This is the point I was trying to make. If I played the game, that would make me disgusting. It would make me a bad person. You would, like a lot of people when they play the game, they take those rules and they why does it have to be a game? Anyways, why can't everybody be successful? Why can't we give a shot to everybody? The fact that it's a game makes it sound like there's going to be losers no matter what, which that shouldn't be the case in human society. We should try to lift all of each other up, right? I mean, the fact that you have to, there's ways to make yourself successful and to make society as a whole successful without stepping on each other's backs. Just that whole mentality is part of the problem.
I think they're disgusting. Why would I want to play the game?
As a real estate guy, I can make millions of dollars and use the exact same tax loopholes that a Donald Trump would use and pay effectively no tax. And does that make me a bad guy, or did I just study the tax code?
Yeah, it makes you a bad guy.
It's a bad guy, yeah.
You think so?
If you do that, yeah.
Yeah, it makes you a bad guy. If you're going to take advantage of people in situations and like that, that's definitely not a good thing. There's always going to be attrition, but the people who fall into the statistic should never end up homeless. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that everybody's always going to make the same amount of money. Like, not everybody's going to be equal like this the whole way across. Like, even in like Star Trek, which is like what I consider like an ideal society, I guess. There were still people who were less like incentivized and powerful than other people, but they still lived a fulfilling and happy life. You could be a bartender or open a seafood shop or a little, hot dog stand or something and still live your life and be able to do things and go on vacations and experience life to its fullest. That's not a possibility in today's society because like most of the time you're working to make somebody else money to the point where you don't have anything left afterwards, like you have to pay your bills and everything like that, and then there's no fulfillment for you from your labor.
I'm following the law to a T.
The law is wrong. Yeah.
Why is it wrong? It's the law.
I'm not.
You think just because of the law, it's always right?
No, certainly not. Certainly.
No, I'm not.
That's what she just said, though. If she's saying that if it's a law, that should be followed. It's always right. But I mean, we've obviously proven that's not the case with changing things like civil rights and segregation and slavery and so on and so forth.
I'm not saying that. I'm
No,
not
the
saying
law is
that,
written
but
to encourage investment, is which they want. So he's investing. So like the law is written to encourage certain things. If you disagree with it, you can go lobby and change. But he's not a bad guy.
I know you mentioned that there are barriers in place that do keep people kind of in impoverished conditions, but I don't think that we all acknowledge like the mental.
Well, that's where I was going. So if I can reflect on myself, I mean, I remember when I was living in poverty, I was just trying to survive. So I didn't even have the brain capacity to try or the willpower to kind of even desire to access the rules of the economy. But I mean, I had an epiphany, and I literally woke up one day and I was like, I cannot live the rest of my life like this, and I don't care if people call me lame, square, they're gonna question my blackness. I mean, I don't care. I'm getting out.
Well, speaking about blackness, do you think there's a correlation between people from the African diaspora and people of color and poverty? You don't think there's like a relationship there?
Oh,
It's true.
yeah,
that,
there's definitely.
I belong to a community that makes less than certain other communities. That's true. Significantly less. But you can't look at differences between groups and say it's only because of systems. Systems played a huge deal to it. I'm not discounting that at all. Like, it's a real big deal, and we're working to.
This guy is compromising. Like, he's compromising what he believes. Like, I can tell that, like, maybe he used to think a different way, but like he's making excuses now for the steps that he's made to make it big and make it rich. I can tell in the way that he's discussing things. It's kind of sad to see that, Generally, new ideas for businesses that turn people into millionaires are rare. I haven't heard of any reasonable ideas from the rich side yet in this video. Exactly. I mean, it's like critical thinking. Like I said, what have they? They're making it sound like anybody can do this, and that's just not the case.
Change that. But also, I mean, statistically, like, people from my old neighborhood and people, around in these communities, they spend about 50% more on shoes than people who are not in those neighborhoods. And it's like, man, that.
Well, not only that, Todd, but I think I looked up a recent statistic that said that Asian households, their children tend to study 13 to 15 hours a week, where in a black household, it's like 3 hours a week.
Okay, so she's making Asians as a monolith right there, first of all. Are those Japanese people, Korean people? What are you talking about? Like, which Asian people? It's not all Asian cultures are have that sort of work ethic instilled into them. Just,
I know you said it's not like a race issue, but when you think about the way that we got here as like African people, it was a race issue. We didn't have a chance to discover America like the other people did. So I feel like how you had mentioned that Asian Americans, they study more than black households. You don't feel like those communities are kind of socialized in their upbringing to be more inclined to care about their finances, as opposed to like African Americans, we would rather look rich than actually be rich. I think that's a part of like our community.
It's a culture. It's a choice.
Well, it's
not a choice.
I don't
To a certain extent.
I think it's a choice.
2021.
I do think it's a choice. I'm not going to say it's not a choice, but I'm saying, do you feel like some people don't have the same choices as other people's in different communities?
I think some people don't have the mental capacity to allocate the energy to.
Mindset's a weird thing, guys. So mindset is a really weird thing. Like if you get it's really hard to be in a situation where perpetually, for generation after generation after generation after generation, you've been stuck in a culture's been stuck in the same way of thinking and the same situations, as far as their financial standing, and blocks to their financial standing have only been dissipated little by little over a period of 300 years. You're going to find that there are going to be some mental blockades to breaking out of those monotonous situations, breaking out of those learned traits, even if it's like, what do they call it, epigenetic. It's almost like epigenetic learning. It's like generation after generation goes through these hardships and get beat down and beat down and beat down, and eventually it's like instilled in them through every part of their culture and every part of their being, every part of their upbringing, things like that. And it makes it hard for people to break out of those mindsets. I try my best to break out of those mindsets from when I was younger and was poor, and it's much harder these days, or it's still hard these days to think, that I could be more, I could do more, I could be successful in my life, because I've always been told, that I'm the poor kid, I'm the person who's going to be stuck in this position. There's nothing I can do. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have the financial backing to get me off the ground. And those things get stuck, in your head. And you try to break out of them as much as possible. And you can tell yourself objectively, hey, that's not necessarily the truth. I can break out of this. But there's always that voice,
Learn the rules of the game, quote unquote, because their instincts are kicking in to just survive.
I think trauma plays a heavier role than we like to account for. Trauma is the reason why I'm here. I come from a family, a heavily cult Islamic family, and the things that I was doing in my life they didn't agree with. They pretty much sent people to my house to kill me. I was set up multiple times. They hacked my social media pages.
God damn. That's some crazy shit right there. Yeah, when your family doesn't like your views, so they just try to kill you.
Both my iPhones, you know what I mean? So I don't want to just kind of ignore trauma as if it doesn't really matter in terms of what you are capable of doing, because people that are traumatized and people that do deal with a lot of oppression
and being oppressed and having your family oppressed for generation after generation after generation does cause that sort of trauma, and does cause that mindset to make you think that you're not worth it or you can't get out of it. And that's a feature, not a bug for the owner class. They like to perpetuate that in people and make it worse and worse and worse. At the same time, well, they're making it like objectively worse for people because the price of living is going up while the wages stay stagnant, and so it's you feel it more and more, and so that trauma gets deeper and deeper.
To get some of their choices removed.
I can acknowledge that, yes.
My name is Hanifa. I'm an author, and I'm currently homeless, so I don't make any money right now. I grew up Muslim my entire life, and in Islam, it is permissible to marry your cousin, so my family enforced sexual acts in between cousins. It led to me having to flee my...
Holy shit. Once you think you have it bad in your life, you got to listen to somebody else's story, man, and put yourself in their shoes. That's unbelievable that she had to go through that.
My hometown and come all the way to California, which is 2,600 miles away, just that I can avoid being killed.
I've worried where my next meal will come from.
Me. Been there.
Me and my partner right now are applying for EBT because we are just like living check to check right now, and I'm supporting both of us because she just lost her job. We're like literally trying to get help from the government so that we can know that we have the funds to get groceries. It's so hard, and it feels like it's not as accessible as people make it seem.
To have everything stripped.
I don't understand this woman right here, because she's arguing one thing and showing emotion, like I don't know. I think that I think there's some dissonance in her language and her heart.
Away from you, and to not know where you're gonna sleep. It's just very difficult. I almost feels like a past life of having like everything. I had bags. I had to take my little Michael Kors back to the pawn shop, take every item of clothing that I had to Plato's Closet so that I could buy a one-way ticket for myself and my child. I didn't know what we were gonna eat. I didn't know where we were gonna sleep, and not to be a victim, but it's not my fault why I'm here. It's because I speak out against cult behavior. I speak out against pedophilia, and publishing my story has the domino effect of that has led me to not knowing where I'm going to eat, and I've never had that happen to me before prior to 4 months ago, and that's just really tough.
Thank you for sharing your story. That's really powerful, and like if you need help, like after this, let's just talk. That pulls on my heartstrings because my mother.
See, it's like this guy. I don't know if he knows that his like ways that he's doing things are part of the problem, but at least he's trying to show empathy.
Raised us 3 kids by herself, and my father was a wife beater. He was also a child molester, so anyone listening can connect the dots on that. I feel for you.
I almost want to jump out because it was only a short period of time, and just that short period of time when you're busted or whatever, and you're just like whatever. But you guys were like in the
Busto.
thick of it. You guys were in the trenches. I visited the trenches for like a couple.
You had a
months.
tough.
So I'm getting paid paycheck.
See, and he just said, "Oh, I made it from nothing," but then he just admits right there that he really has only dipped his toe in those trenches, So,
To paycheck, and on top of that, I have a crippling gambling addiction. I'm addicted to weed. I'm addicted to alcohol. I'm addicted to vaping. And as soon as I have that direct deposit, it's like I have no control. Almost like I black out and I start gambling, start ordering drinks, start ordering weed, and
that's exactly what I was talking about that before. That I mean, it's not that deep for me, but every once in a while I get that breakdown in my head that says, "Well, fuck, I should be able to do these things. I should be able to enjoy myself," and then I'll go out and spend a shit ton of money on alcohol or go shopping and spend money that I shouldn't. Well, not that I shouldn't, but that I should have, but I don't, that's that mindset, it's like trying to make yourself feel good for just even a little second because that life's short and you're not probably going to have that opportunity.
And then I come out of that no control feeling, and I'm like thinking, how am I gonna feed my pets this week, my cat, my dog? Like, I had all these plans up to my payday. Before I know it, all my money's gone, and it's addiction.
When you're in a position when you don't have a lot of money, you can't do a lot of things for fun, and you're often just like working. I have to survive, I have to feed myself. And so when you get that paycheck and you have just a little bit of enough money to do something that will spark joy for you, it's so hard to be like, no, I'll put it aside to save. It's like, I'll just do this one thing for myself. I'll just treat myself. And then it's like, well, now it's gone.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I used to think like that too, but I also thought about how joyful it would be to be rich. I would rather not have that instant gratification because the gratification of being infinitely stable or more stable is more important. My name is Brittany. I am a holistic health practitioner, and I make around $130,000 a year. My relationship with my brother has literally crumbled since have acquired more money. He only calls me when he needs something. The only person that I really have a relationship with is my mom. I haven't spoken to my brother.
Oh, you poor thing.
I want them to be happy and, and successful more than anything. But it almost feels dehumanizing to be looked at as just the help and not a sister or a cousin or something like that, yeah.
My name is Mia, and I'm currently working as a customer service representative for a moving and storage company. I make $45K a year. My family has always been like, oh, you gotta look presentable, you gotta look nice.
That's ridiculous. Like that, like 10, 15 years ago, that would have been an all right salary, but nowadays it's not. It's just
nice
not.
Whenever we're going out to eat or to the mall. But as an adult, a lot of my money isn't going towards buying new clothes or jewelry, makeup, whatever it might be. So you'll catch me in like sweats and a t-shirt, and I just don't feel presentable enough to be at the mall, to be at a restaurant, because of that embarrassing feeling and shame of not investing more in how I present myself.
The disagreeer.
You're just hanging out back there.
I feel like I misunderstood the prompt.
So have you ever worried about where your next meal was going to come from? Ever?
Oh, no, I definitely have. Like when I was in college, I was trying to buy groceries, and the lady behind me ended up paying.
Yeah, she had.
For me, and it's so embarrassing because my card got maxed out and I had no money in the bank account, basically.
$15 an hour is not enough for minimum wage.
It is not.
I did have a question for you two. You both mentioned that you suffer from addiction and that as soon as you get a paycheck, it's gone, whether it's gambling or weed or shopping or whatever. If you had a higher income, would that change?
Personally, yes, because the whole reason I gamble is like, let me get that $60,000 win and I'll stop gambling. That's my mindset, right? And another
Yeah, that's it's a reach for the future in any way you possibly can.
thing is, I feel like if I were to have like passive income, I guess you can say, or be financially stable, I can pursue and distract myself with my actual passions. Like, I want to start a true crime YouTube channel, but I don't have the laptop, I don't have the camera. The addiction takes control, so I don't think
Let me tell you something, guys. So I was gotten myself into a lucky situation just recently because I had no computer to do this stuff on. I had no microphone, no lights, nothing, no space to do what I wanted to do as far as these videos were concerned. I have a friend who I live with now who wanted to do some of the same similar things. He's making comic books and he's doing videos and things like that. And he accepted me coming into his home, and he bought this computer and all of this equipment and gave me the opportunity so that I could put my voice out there and try to fulfill my dream and fulfill my hopes of doing something with myself as far as producing content is concerned. And I owe him big for that. Like, I mean, I wish there was a way that I could make it known to him that I really appreciated, and I don't know where I'd be without that sort of help. So even the littlest things like that can be big, because people like this girl right here may not have that sort of support system or people who can help her out with that sort of thing. So
about the things I don't have, and I just feel numb and thoughtless, and I'm just enjoying my TV. And so yeah, I feel like it would change. I would be able to have other distractions that are beneficial to me in a positive way.
If you had more money, you could probably have access to help, like medical.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
psychiatrists.
Psychiatry
Because
and things
that's
like
really
that.
expensive, and you can't afford it living off of minimum wage. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of jobs will pay minimum wage, but they will expect maximum effort. And I'm like, if you're gonna pay me minimum wage, I'm putting in the bare minimum effort.
I've always looked at it the opposite way. Like, if I go into a company and they're paying me minimum wage, I do everything that I can to get promoted. Hi, my name is Todd. I am 29 years old. I am a real estate investor and a YouTuber, and I make about $1.4 million per year. When you grow up the way I did, with no money, and your mom is struggling and crying herself to sleep every night because you can't pay the bills, that takes a toll on you as a kid, and seeing that struggle. I got my first job when I was 12 years old, literally shoveling horse poop for $3 an hour. And I looked at myself when I was 12 years old, and I was like, you've got to make $1 million a year by the time you're 30.
My name is Sean, I'm 23 years old. I'm a musician and content creator, and I make minimum wage at a retail job. If I wasn't having to work every day to pay my rent, then I would have more time to make music.
This is exactly what I was just saying here.
And connect with people and find venues to perform my music. And if I had the money, I would be able to market and promote my music so that it could reach a wider audience.
For me, my mindset is
We're going to probably end after this segment, guys, because I do got somebody waiting on me
minimum
to
wage
do
is
a
always temporary.
interview.
It's always been like,
So-
okay, we work minimum wage, but we're gonna work harder to get promoted, and then we're gonna do something else with our lives.
Many, many, many years ago, you could go live off the land. You didn't have to work for somebody in order to survive. All the land is taken. It's in federal land. You can't go fishing in these federal streams. You can't do that. So that's not possible at scale. In order to survive, you must work for someone else. That forces wages down, right? People can't just go F.
Yeah, which sucks. There's something fundamentally flawed with our system if that's the
I'm
case.
not going to work. I'm going to chill and work on my novel or do whatever. So that's the part where I agree with you. I'm a supporter of UBI, so that people aren't forced to work. And where I disagree is that we don't pay people based on what they need. And you were kind of pointing to this. I give the minimum effort if you pay me minimum wage. But there's certain jobs that are not worth $15 an hour. They're just frankly not worth it. Maybe they're
Like what?
worth $5. Maybe they're worth $2. I want you to watch TV for an hour in your house and tell me how many commercials come up, because I'm doing a survey. I want to pay you $7 an hour. You think I should have to pay you $15 an hour for that? Or would you take $7 an hour to sit on your couch and count commercials that show up on the television?
I mean, yeah, I would take any money.
Okay, so everybody here agreed that it should be $15 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah.
But by making the wage $15 an hour,
Because when you're put in a situation where you have no choice, or you feel like you have a little choice, you're going to do whatever you can to make as much money to make up for that, you know, to make up for the fact that you don't have minimum wage. That's why the gig economy is so big, why people go out and work, you know, so much for so little at 4 different jobs.
you just eliminated a job that he's willing to do.
All right, guys, we're going to leave that at that right there. It's been a great segment for that. I really like these Jubilee videos. They're a lot of fun.